Hi, this is a video for Ahmad and Arturo. Ahmad's just joined us to help working on the color script, and Arturo's already been working on this. Just to note, a lot of the work that's already been done was done by Ahmed a little while ago before he became too busy, and he did this wonderful work here. Now this isn't the full film by any stretch of the imagination, but it's a good spread. And basically what I've been doing is editing this in alongside the film, and it's in this track right here, and you can see that there's some gaps in there, but the idea is that we've got indications of roughly what sort of color temperature, what hues and what values we're looking for at various different stages of the film. I don't need a lot of detail for this. It could be really rough. This is like more than enough information for what we need. It just gives us a few little places I can pull colors from. So when I'm working in the actual scene itself, I can refer to this and I can go, okay, the light spots are going to be this, values over here. The darkness in the sky is going to get to this color and hue over here. And we've got little hot spots like that. And so I can help. It helps me a great deal to actually do all the lighting and the shading, and it informs everybody in the pipeline. So the first pass we've had is really quite good actually. We've got a lot of material that goes all the way through, but we've got some gaps. I've used some of Arturo's paintings to fill some of those gaps, like here for example. Because they're not too far off, I think, what we would be looking for in colours and hues and mood and tone anyway. So we can use those in those places. But in some ways, what's even more useful is these quick sketches that are a little bit more frequently updated throughout the timeline. Now we've got some sections here that are just untouched. Like there's a big gap here where really what I'd love to have you guys do is just pick up some shots from the previs and just do extremely crude brush strokes that just kind of block out where the light is and the hues and the values in certain key moments in the story. So for example here you might take a screen grab of this and just go, okay, well we want the highlights to be here, this is where I think the sun is going to be, and this is the key thing. You have to really think through where is the sun at any given moment in the film, and that does to some degree require you to study the edit and get used to when's the sun going down and when's it coming up. The whole film is structured as 7 days where the sun comes down and then goes up and then comes down 7 times. I think we cheat at one point where we don't really have it go down fully, and then when we get into storms it's harder to tell because you're not seeing the sun anyway, so it just takes a little bit of study. But what I'm going to do now is point you in the direction of where you can find files to help you out. So over here in our file section, so this is, if you're logged into our project on Artella, go to the Files tab and then go to Files, Visual Development, Color Script. Actually, the first thing you're going to look for is actually under Reference, because I'm going to suggest you go to the video folders under Reference and download some of these videos here. I'm going to show you what they are. Basically, if you right click on it and you say sync, I already have them synced, so that's why they're already there. And the ones that you're particularly interested in are going to be Animatic, which will be the latest version of the Animatic. It's always the latest. Every single time I put a new version on YouTube, I'm also copying the MOV file to this folder location so that people can download it and use it as reference. That will have, as a general rule of thumb, that will always have the full screen version of the watchable film. Occasionally in the past I have also put the boards into this, but I think now we've got a separate one for that. So here's the board's previs color, and this is a useful one to look at. It looks kind of like this. Just going to mute that. Mute would work. There we go. All right, and basically this is a 4-way split of the in the final film. We'll put down in the right hand corner once we start rendering, but basically you can see the color script in the top right hand corner, and this will help you understand how we're plotting these out throughout the film. And you'll probably find as you scrub through there's a nice big gap here. sections because we don't have anything for that section. So that's a great place to jump in, grab some stills, and start painting and working the colors in and thinking about where the light's going to be. But one of the things I want to note as well is that you don't have to do too many panels. You don't need to do a single panel for every single shot. Really, all we're looking for is the key changes. So you might pick the beginning of the scene, the end of the scene, and something in the middle that shows the transition between the two. Because one of the things we're doing a lot, if we have a whole scene and it takes place over the course of one day, is we've got the sun rising, we've got it in the middle of the sky in the middle, and then it's going down towards the end. And of course, you're going to have different light and different colors in the sky across that. So I would say if you're working on an entire scene, you can tell by it says in the bottom left-hand corner, day 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So this is day 6, for example. All the numbers after that just break it down into subsections of that day. But if you were to take on a whole day, then I would recommend you want to do the beginning, middle, and end at least. And if there's a significant change in the tone or the mood, then pick off a few other places in there as well. So I don't want you to do tons and tons of work on every single shot and lots of details. It's mainly just about getting broad strokes, very broad strokes, so that we can fill all those gaps. It's more important for me to have all of the gaps in the edit filled with some sort of information about the color and the hues than it is for me to have any detail on those specific scenes. And then, you know, what's nice at the end of it is to be able to put together something that looks nice like this. So we can take Ahmed's stuff and we'll mix it with Arturo and Ahmad's stuff and make a full spread of the whole color hues. Now, one of the other things that you're going to notice when you do a spread like this is it's easier to suddenly see where the progression of the light and the color is happening across the film. So it's very likely that we're going to still come back to these later and actually rework them, because you can sort of go on it, you get your goggles on and you look very closely at one particular point of the edit and it feels like, oh, this is what this needs at this particular moment. But then when you get further out and you look at the whole piece as a whole, you might realize, I'd like to see some more blues in this section of the film. This is getting too intense. And over here, maybe we go a little bit warmer. So bear in mind, that's one of the reasons I want you to go rough and fast and not too many shots, is because we're going to be coming back to this later and we might have to rework hues and change moods on much bigger scales. I did this in my last film and I basically did a whole spread like this, massive draw overs after the fact that adjusted all the hues throughout so that it could progress through the film. And then I took the hues that were baked into these color script layouts and work them back into the lighting and the compositing for the final stages. Because what we really want to be doing is using the tone and the mood and the color and everything to inform the journey that Martin the Mushroom is taking, but also to slightly influence the audience, you know, just coach them into feeling a certain way at a certain time, that kind of thing. So anyway, hopefully that's helpful. What I would suggest you guys do is use Slack to agree on which sections you're going to work on next. So I know Arturo has been working on some stuff that's in the feed. Let me bring over the feed and just drag down. We can see what he's been working on. Oops, a little way down. We've got lots of activity recently. Right, so Arturo's been working on day 6A. And he's got 3 panels he's been working on there. I would argue that these are more detailed than we need and more panels than we need. But that essentially tells you that Arturo is working on day 6A. Where is that? So that is over here somewhere. Oop. Day 6A. I may have already put it in the timeline. Let's just do this. Yeah, see, I've already put these in the timeline. So that's no longer a gap. But maybe if Arturo wants to continue filling the gaps in this area, perhaps, Ahmed, you want to take a look at this section over here in day 2A, or something like that. But make sure that you go onto Slack, go into the color script thread, and just say, hey, is anybody working on day 2A? Arturo, are you working on this or anything like that, so that between the two of you, you can figure out how to fill those gaps. Now, if you're looking for the gaps, like I say, just head on over, look at the board's previs color so that you can see where those gaps are. And then grab, basically, if you say, let's say you wanted to fill this gap over here, then you might go and find an appropriate keyframe over here, screen grab that, do a crude paint over of it, and then provide us the image. Then when you are providing the images, by the way, what I suggest is this. Let's bring up the files again. I want to find the file section. Here we go. So back in the file section, if we go over to Visual Development, Color Script, this is where you're going to find a lot of useful material. If you want to take a look at what's already been done, you're going to see it in version 1, for example. There's a lot of nice work there. And what is happening here is I'm just getting sent back a JPEG with the name of the shot. I don't need it to be embedded in the image, by the way. I'd rather have the correct aspect ratio of the actual image and just leave it as is. But put the name of the shot that you're reproducing in the title of the image, and then drop all of those into a version folder over here. Now, because there was only one person working on this before, and it's currently Arturo, he's been controlling the versioning, but maybe Ahmad, sorry, you want to just create your own version folder and drop files in there. So maybe just go, so let's say you're going to add VO5. Do a VO5 underscore with your initials on it so that we know who actually did that version, okay? And that you can do by just going new folder and creating it in here. And then just drop each session of images that you want feedback on into there. Right, that should cover that. Obviously, the other thing I'd love to do is if you can get a spread, something like this. Let's say we're studying day 2A and you're working on day 2A. It's a really good idea to go into Photoshop, use the contact form feature to pull in a bunch of images in sequence. Now, at some point, we want to be doing that for the entire film, but maybe for you, what you would do is grab some of the sequence before it, some of the sequence after it, and then your work that you've done, and just put them all in order in a contact form like this, and then put them up on Artella for feedback. That's a much more useful way than doing them in isolation in some ways, because I can look at a still image in isolation in the feed and give notes on it, but I'm not seeing it in context. So there's two ways for me to get this in context. One is in a contact sheet where we see all the different shots around it and we see how the light and the color progresses. That's probably the best way. And the other way is for me to get those individual images, then I will edit them into the edit and we can see it actually progressing through as we play the video. But obviously that second stage takes a little time because I have to get those shots back from you. So just know that if you're not sending one or the other of those two things, then we're not reviewing the working context and it's very hard to give you notes. So one of the two of those would be useful, if not both. Okay, anyway, thank you very much. And give me a shout if you have any questions.